Odyssey app and listen to your favorite stations, shows, and podcasts.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMC FM at HD1 San Francisco. Always live on the free Odyssey app. That's a wrap.
Yo, that's a wrap. It was an amazing experience. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Hope we got some laughs, some good entertainment.
This is Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
Curry will screen for Draymond. Pass over to Kuminga. Dunk it right over the top of Jackson. A right-hand slam. It was savage. A little elevation sensation.
Yeah, a great night from Jonathan Kuminga. We'll start with the good news there and the call from Tim and Jim here on 95.7 The Game as Kuminga played 30 minutes in this one, scored 24 points. He started off making 4 of 5 from 3. I do think it was part of the Grizzlies' game plan to help off of Kuminga and also give Kuminga shots that you want as a defender for him to take, but he took them. He was comfortable in taking them, and really one of the better games of the season, I thought, from Jonathan Kuminga, as he finishes with 24 points to lead the Warriors, but it's not nearly enough. Another bad first quarter for Golden State. They fight back in the middle two, have a shot in this game at 108-106 down the stretch, but then it is all Grizzlies from there as the Grizzlies beat the Warriors 133-119. So as we welcome you inside Warriors Wrap Up here on 95.7 The Game, it's John Dickinson with you. Phone number to participate in the program is 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570, and just more bad defense for the Warriors in this one, and another night where the Warriors' opponent knocks down a huge percentage from three-point range. And the article from The Ringer going back to the middle of this past week showing the disparity in three-point percentage for the Warriors' opponents in games played at Chase Center versus games played on the road. And it's actually gotten worse. There was an 8.3% difference, I think it was. It was roughly 32% teams shoot from three against the Warriors at Chase, and it's about 40.5% on the road, and it's gone up over the last 3 games on the road. When you look at what Atlanta was able to do last night, the Clippers shot 47% from three in the road trip opener, and the Grizzlies tonight, 18 of 38 from three-point range. And the Grizzlies were playing without a couple of starters in this game, including their best player in Ja Morant. But they shoot 47% from three, and it was a night where second of a back-to-back for both teams, but just not enough defense again for the Warriors and not enough for the big three and from the big three. Now, this is the first game really in the last 2 weeks since Stephen Curry's been back where Curry didn't shoot it particularly well, and I thought the Grizzlies' defense was trying to limit Steph's shooting opportunities, and Dillon Brooks does a nice job on him for all the antics and the nonsense surrounding Dillon Brooks. He's a good defender when he's locked in and not running his mouth. And the Grizzlies are a good defensive team, especially at home where they have the best record in the NBA and some similar, although not quite as great, but similar home road splits where the Grizzlies play at a much higher level and score the basketball. Grizzlies pretty much a good defensive team home and away, but they're a much better offensive team when they play at home, sometimes struggle to score when they are away from FedEx Forum. But these last 2 games here facing the Warriors in Memphis over the last week and a half, similar. Not quite as bad a first quarter for the Warriors in this one, but bad enough to be down 33-23 at the end of one. And then the fourth quarter after the Warriors had cut it down all the way to 2, fought, scratched, clawed, big third quarter. 41-33 Warriors in the third quarter to get back into the game and give themselves a chance to snap what now is an 11-game road losing streak with 2 games to go here on the road trip and now 10 games to go overall. But it wasn't enough. Even the 19 free throw attempts the Warriors had in the third quarter, not enough to really even have a shot at this one in the final 6 minutes. Grizzlies put it away. Steve Kerr tapped out, pulled the plug with about 4.5 minutes to go. The Warriors are on to Houston, and that game on Monday in Houston now becomes, in my opinion, a must-win game as the Warriors dip now to 36-36. They've had a good scoreboard beneath them in the Western Conference playoff race over the last couple of weeks, so they're not out of it by any means, although they do now firmly sit in 7th in the West. They slipped behind Dallas. Those two teams had come into play tied with each other. Minnesota lost beneath them. The Lakers have lost a couple in a row beneath them. Utah's losing right now at home to Boston late beneath them. And on the outside looking in, the Pelicans and Blazers can't buy a win. So the Warriors still holding on to that 7 spot and still 2 games to go on this road trip as they take on the Rockets and the Mavs. So 888-957-9570 if you want to give me a call or shoot me a text. We'll get to your calls. We'll get to your text messages. John Dickinson here. Warriors wrap up on 95.7 The Game. Your secret sauce of the game, your hardest working player. We will also hear from Steve Kerr. But let's get to the phones here and get it rolling with Nick in San Jose up first here tonight on a Saturday night on Warriors wrap up on 95.7 The Game. What's going on tonight, Nick? What do you got?
Hey, JT, I am thankful for you, man. And when you and Steiny are together,
Nick, are you there?
Appetite, I love it. Yeah. Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, Nick. No, Nick.
Hey.
No, Nick. All right, no, Nick. Nick, give us a call back. We'll get you right to the front of the line here. 888-957-9570 here on Warriors Wrap Up. How bad was Klay Thompson tonight? And Klay Thompson, you look at his numbers, and Klay Thompson, I think Klay tonight was the worst player on the floor for the Warriors. When you look top to bottom, he was a minus 30. He was 6 of 17 and 2 of 9 from 3. And he can't defend. He can't move. He's really got, I think, one trick in his bag at this point, and that is the ability to, the ability to not be able to knock down shots. And so, when he's not knocking down shots, a lot of these other nights, it's like, well, what else is he doing well? And I think that becomes something that's problematic. And so, yeah, I think with Klay, he looked tired tonight. He looked like he wasn't moving well. And again, he looked like a player which has been exceedingly frustrating in that when the shots aren't going down, it looks like he doesn't have any answer other than just keep chucking them up. And I think that's something that has continued to put the Warriors in vulnerable positions in a lot of these games where they've made runs and the games are kind of hanging there. And it's just that simple adjustment to, hey, you're not having a good night, or the team is not having a good night in a particular way. Let's go away from something and try to keep the ball moving. It just seems like there's just this hell-bent defiance toward, I'm going to play the way that I've always played, and that's either going to be good enough or bad enough. And as a 4-time champion, I get it to a certain extent, but at the same time, you also have to acknowledge the fact that it just isn't good enough. Klay on the road, we can get into some of the home road splits, but Klay on the road has been just bad, really. He has been his own personal home road split differential with some of the big games and lighting up Chase Center and the energy and everything that comes through it, vintage Klay performances. But on the road, it's been much more like the October, November, December Klay Thompson than the guy that we've seen at home and the guy that has really tried to tell the world that he's back and playing at the same level. And on the nights where he doesn't make shots, you just look around sometimes with how bad his defense is and the inability to move and falling off of guys and allowing open shots. And it's in a way kind of sad sometimes. Like, wow, he really isn't on the nights where it's bad. It's really bad. And I think that's probably the biggest differential between the two. All right, let's give this another shot. 888-957-9570. Yeah, I did not hear Nick when he was on the line, but we can try him again, Sterling says. So let's try Nick again here on Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game. What's going on, Nick?
Hey, buddy. First of all, I love you and Steiny together. It's an intellectual man's dream when you two are together. You see the game so well. A couple direct questions and observations for you, JT. Number one, I can't remember a team, even in the Run TMC days, with the Warriors' inability to keep people in front of them. And I'm sick and tired of listening to Fitz on TV talking about, I can't believe they're shooting three-pointers as well against us. It's obvious why they are, because we can't stay in front of someone that we have to help, and it's wide-open threes, and NBA players can hit wide-open threes. So my first question to you is, why can't we stay in front of someone, and why are we so disconnected? For the first time in God knows how long, the bench picked us up, and the starters were putrid today. That's question two, and my last two questions. Why won't Steve Kerr at least get his Scottish temper with the media after the game or yell at someone during the game? And then the last question is, Draymond said on one of his podcasts earlier this year, I blame myself because I'm in charge of the defense. His body language and his play tonight was atrocious. Why can't he get the defense connected, bro? Those are four questions. Please answer for me, JT. I'm befuddled, dude.
Yeah, appreciate it. And it's JD. Yeah, I like you. Good phone calls. Appreciate the praise. If you're running material by calling me JT instead of JD, then I'll never take your phone call again. We'll just keep it like that, like right off the top, point blank, straightforward, keeping it real here tonight on 95.7 The Game. So I don't know if that's running material or not, but, just it's not JP, it's not JC, it's JD and not JT. That being said, I'll try to answer your questions here. As far as the defense, they don't have enough good defensive players on the floor at the same time to keep the opponent in front of them. It's been a problem all year. I think part of the problem has been Andrew Wiggins is their best on-ball defender, and they haven't had him. Klay Thompson is not an on-ball guarding dudes who attack as guards type of a player anymore. He's more of a wing or a wing big type defender now than he used to be. Steph Curry does the best he can, and the irony is Steph Curry among him and Poole and Klay Thompson is the best defender the Warriors have now against those kinds of guards. And when you factor out Dante DiVincenzo, who's pretty good at it, they slide Kuminga over to try and defend some of those types of players now. But they just don't have the ability. They don't have the talent, frankly. They don't have the guys that are athletic enough to do it. And I think not having Wiggins in many ways wrecks the entire defensive scheme to a certain extent. They're hoping they get him back. They're hoping they get Gary Payton II back, who obviously can be plugged onto an on-ball offensive player, and that can help stop some of it. I think the other part is when guys are constantly getting beat, and we've talked about that a lot, then the help defense gets wonky. You've got players that are helping off because players are getting beat, and then it becomes an easy pass to a three-point shooter for a wide-open shot. But it all, to me, starts with the point of attack defense. And the other thing that I've harped on a ton over the course of this season, but even more so recently, is the Warriors' bad shots and bad offense, whether it's turnovers or the old shot turnover. And Klay Thompson, when he ain't hitting, his shots are bad shots. And Jordan Poole, when he's not hitting, a lot of his shots are bad shots that lead to transition opportunities the other way. So the Warriors at times have some of the most careless turnovers you will ever see, which lead to easier offensive possessions going the other way for the opponent. But at the same time, some of the shots that they take lead to, if they can't get an offensive rebound, just kind of the old hockey odd man rush, going the other way, which put the defense at a vulnerable position. Why was the Warriors' defense better in the third quarter? A little bit. It was because they were getting to the free throw line, which was allowing them to set their defense and come up with a few more stops. But even in the third quarter, their defense wasn't great. They still gave up 33 points, which is as many as they gave up in the first quarter. They just got to the free throw line a ton and made up for those points by scoring themselves. And so when you look at this thing, you think of the Warriors getting to the line 34 times and making 28 as they did tonight, you think that's a game you're probably going to win, but you're not going to win that game on a night where the Splash Brothers combine for 30 and combine to be 5 of 17 from three-point range. And so there just was not enough from the starters in this one. Now, Jordan Poole had 21 and got to the line 9 times, and I think that helped keep the Warriors in the game. I don't think Jordan Poole had a good game, really, by any stretch. In fact, his lazy cross-court pass that the Grizzlies stole in the middle of the run after the Warriors had cut it from 108-106 to where it was a 2-point game and the Warriors had a shot there down the stretch. He had the cross-court pass that got stolen, and Desmond Bane ended up hitting a 3, and it was, at that point, a 7-0 run that would turn into a much bigger run, a 15-3 run, which I think even turned into a 21-3 run as the Grizzlies went from 108-106 to 129-109 before the Warriors basically tapped out and called it a night. But I think his play, that play, was one of the plays where it was like, wow, this is just, no matter how many good things that the Warriors do, this is still just not going to be their night, because the bad plays, and Poole had 4 more turnovers tonight. Turnovers themselves, not a big problem for the Warriors, but timely turnovers at moments where they're in the middle of runs that can flip the game and you're trying to hang on. I wouldn't say tonight was one of Jordan Poole's better games. I thought defensively, again, he was awful. He can't keep anybody in front of him. I spent a good chunk of the first segment here talking about Klay Thompson. I mean, Jordan Poole's a much younger player who doesn't show a lot of effort at keeping his man in front of him either. I mean, there was a sequence where him and JaMychal Green both just allowed Bane, and Bane was going at Jordan Poole every single time, attacking him. He got by Poole. JaMychal Green came over. He got by JaMychal Green, then Poole fouls him from behind. I think that was Poole's 3rd foul, which got him sent to the bench there in the first quarter. But it's just the Warriors' best players, top to bottom, are not playing well. Tonight's a kind of night where you get 24 from Kuminga and Steph and Klay play like Steph and Klay, you might win, especially when it's a tight ball game with about 8 minutes to go and both teams played the second of a back-to-back. But it just wasn't there for this team tonight. And, yeah, Klay Thompson, yikes. Minus 30 for Klay Thompson out there at the beginning of the first when things were ugly, out there at the beginning of the third when things were ugly, and out there when the game got away from the Warriors there in that front half of the fourth quarter there, to where it went from a 2-point game to a 20-point game, and then it was on to Houston for Steve Kerr as the Warriors now dip to 36-36 with 10 games to go. The good news for the Warriors, and I keep saying it, as ugly as this is, with them now losing 11 consecutive games on the road, they're still 7th. And with the 3 games that they've lost on this road trip, they are back to even now as far as home and road for the remainder of the season. They do have the 5 games left at home and the 5 games on the road to try and win 4, win all 5. I mean, you got to go all the way back 5 weeks ago today, the last time that a road team won any game that the Warriors have played in. It's now 19 consecutive games where the home team has won in every Warriors game, going back to February 11th. They've won 8 at home consecutively. They've lost now 11 on the road consecutively, and so 19 straight games. I mean, that's pretty incredible when you look at it. But the Warriors have proven a lot of different things this season, and for the most part, it's all led back to the fact that this team is just a 500 team. So, yeah, bringing it back to some of the questions that were asked here from Nick. I mean, they don't have enough players that have the want or the ability to keep the offensive player in front of them. The starters they just aren't good enough nightly. And the home road thing is very real, and it's the champions guys. You take nothing away from their legacies, and Klay Thompson tonight's on the bench, at the end of the game, and maybe there were some fans giving him some hell, and he's doing the 4 rings again, counting them out, and caught on camera. And again, that's great. You're 4-time champion. Nobody can take that from you. But it's embarrassing right now, the level of play that the Warriors are putting out there on a night-in, night-out basis. And this thing has gone well beyond flipping the switch. This thing has gone well beyond, hey, when we want to do it, we can do it. This team, as it's currently constituted, can't do it. Like that is proven. Like this team without Wiggins and without Peyton stinks on the road. They stink. Now, they haven't been better necessarily when they had Wiggins early in the year, a little bit better in the middle portion of the year, but they were a bad road team even with Wiggins. They were a bad road team when they had everybody early in the year except DiVincenzo. I mean, the whole tone for this whole season was set by the 0-5 road trip there to the East right at the beginning of the season when they couldn't win it at Charlotte or Detroit or Miami or Orlando or New Orleans. And the Warriors were, rolling with load management a couple of times early, and they thought that was the way to go. And you look at the way things stand right now and you think, man, maybe you should have tried to go after 1 or 2 of those games with a little more edge and want and desire a little bit earlier in the year. Maybe you'd have a couple extra games in your back pocket, now to where you could withstand these and still be in a little bit of a better position. So 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. It's John Dickinson here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game as the Grizzlies beat the Warriors again, 133-119. So they split the season series, and watching the end right now of Utah and Boston, and Utah just won. Utah has just beaten Boston. They rallied from 19 down, did the Jazz, to come back in Salt Lake City and win it over the Boston Celtics, who are coming up on the end of a long Western trip. This was the second of a back-to-back. They were in Portland yesterday, and so Utah it looked like they were going to get beat tonight a bunch of different times, but they stopped Grant Williams going to the rim in the closing seconds. So the Jazz get a win, and that is significant because the Jazz now move up to 34-36. So for all the talk about where the Warriors are at, looked like Walker Kessler got a block of Grant Williams at the rim as he was going up for a potential game-winning layup, and Utah beat the Celtics by a point in Salt Lake City. Again, that was a game where the Jazz had been down big and came back and got the win. So Utah now within a game of the Warriors as we look at the Jazz, still going to be 11th, but yeah, the Warriors right now are as close to being out as they are to being in 5th in the West, and still 2 more road games to go, and still Philly waiting for the Warriors as they get back to Chase coming up on Friday. All right, we'll keep it moving on the phones. 888-957-9570. Armand in San Jose next here on Warriors Wrap-Up. What's going on, Armand?
Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up, JD? Of course, we got to remember that's a D, not a D. Yeah. You know what? It's hard to talk off season this early because, in fairness, there's 10 games left, and anything can happen. But I think the writing's on the wall. The big three, I think, need to get more criticism than what people are willing to give them. Because at the end of the day, JD, we're not relying on role players to win us games. I'm kind of getting sick of people protecting the stars. If they're that great, you should not, well, they are, but you should not be losing this many road games. Like, I don't know what the record is now. Is it 0-20 trailing on the road after 3 quarters?
I believe it's 0-23, Armand. I'll let you continue, but I believe it's 0-23 now after tonight.
23, wow. Okay. That's just pathetic. I mean, at the end of the day, and you know what, Draymond with the tech, people can talk about it, could have been whatever. bottom line is you put yourself in a position to where you have that many texts so that if something like that happens where it's like the ref could have let it go, you put yourself in a position where you miss a game late in the year where we need everybody. And so I just think that at some point in time, we have to come to the recognition that as great as Steph Curry is, I don't think Klay Thompson and Draymond Green have kept up with the level of greatness they needed to match what Steph Curry is doing, because we are not good enough in other parts of the roster to make up for Klay and Dre being off like we were before. I think that's what people forget when we have Barbosa and Mo Spates and just disregard Kevin Durant. Look at Livingston and Iguodala in their primes. Like, we had so many different players that can contribute and make up for a Draymond or a Klay being off on the same night, or even Steph not being quite himself. You had enough of that. We don't have that. And so you need the other two stars to keep up with where Steph has. They have it. Also, I look at with Jordan Poole, a lot of people blame him for things. I think going back to that punch, and you just look at what he's had to deal with asking him to be more of a point guard, which he is not. It's stupid. He's a shooting guard. He should not be asked to facilitate anything. I think that it's kind of silly to not expect Jordan Poole to have the year he had, not excusing him. I'm just saying, when you really look at everything, the most streaky player on the team being this inconsistent with the type of year that we had with everything going on, I'm not surprised. I just think that you've had a lack of leadership from the big three. I think there's been a lot of self-righteousness from everybody. I think they got a little too big-headed after the championship, and a lot of this stuff is coming ahead. Like, at the end of the day, you still have the core members that were responsible for us winning the chip. Gary Payton II and Otto Porter Jr. should not be the reason why you are almost the complete opposite on the road as you are at home. That just makes no sense for the guys that we expect all these great things from. And I think that it's just an organizational problem now. We got to figure some things out. There are going to have to be some tough decisions made, but I don't think this is a one-year problem. They can get a little bit better on the road next year, but I just think things have gotten so nasty that you may have to change the tone of the team. And I'm hoping, and I know this is blasphemous for a lot of Warrior fans, I'm hoping Draymond Green doesn't opt out. I just think it's time for a change. And truth be told, if they traded Poole, I'm fine with that. Not because I don't like Poole. I just think there's a nasty tone to this team, and sometimes you need to get rid of the tone so that you can move forward.
No, thanks, Armand. No, a lot of good points to get to. And look, I said it and I mean it. The big three's play now and moving forward in their careers doesn't take anything away from all of the things that they've accomplished. But we also do have games that are going on every single night and get evaluated. And I kind of agree with you, Armand, that it's, is this really, like, this team can't win games because they don't have Gary Payton II and Otto Porter when the rest of these players are the same? I mean, that to me is, that's something that's frustrating when you have the big three. But the reality is the big three is not playing well enough, consistently enough to lift this team up. And it's why they're in the position that they're in. And I think, they are and have been maybe more dependent on the top 8 all being locked in and connected and able to play to a point where if you don't have that, and really the Warriors have not had their preferred top 8 or 9 at any point this season. They didn't have DiVincenzo at the beginning, and then Wiggins was out and Curry was out, and they were both out, and then Curry came back, and then they had everybody, and then Wiggins was out again, and then Curry went out again, and all of that. So they've had a lot of players in and out, and so just when it's been about go time, they've lost somebody else. But the most part, they've lost games, and I think everything's going to be on the table for this team as we move forward this offseason, if depending upon how this thing shakes out. And yes, as much as I've been reluctant to go down this path, the Warriors could miss the playoffs. They could. Now the trends are saying, if you just want to go straight through, the trends are saying, hey, they're going to win 4 out of the last 5 home games, and they're going to win 4 of the last 5, or lose 4 of the last 5 road games, or go 5-0 and 0-5. However you want to add it up. Well, they're 36-36 right now. So if they do that, they're 41-41. Well, right now, 41-41 would be good enough for 7th, because Minnesota is a couple of games under 500. The 8 seed now is 2 under. OKC is 2 under. The Lakers are 3 under. And Utah got a win, so Utah actually moves to 2 under right now. So the Jazz are actually going to move into 10th, and the Lakers are going to move to the outside looking in now, as they've dropped a couple of games in a row. But it's not off the table that the Warriors miss the playoffs. Now, again, 41-41 might be good enough to be 7th, and then we're going to see who's actually playing for the Warriors if they have to play a play-in game on April 11th or April 12th. A home game at Chase against Minnesota or OKC or Utah, or the Pelicans or somebody like that. I think the Warriors would feel pretty confident in that. But there's a difference between thinking you can win a game and thinking you can win a championship. And, this team just all year long, for a number of different reasons, just hasn't been good enough. But if you look at the guys that are playing on a night-in, night-out basis, and you look at tonight in particular, like tonight is simple. Tonight wasn't about the young guys. Tonight wasn't about Anthony Lamb. Tonight wasn't about JaMychal Green. Tonight wasn't about Moses Moody. And tonight was about Steph, Clay, Draymond, Looney, who actually got his ass kicked tonight by the Memphis Bigs. You got to call it like you see it. And Jordan Poole wasn't very good tonight. Kuminga was good tonight, but Kuminga being your best player isn't going to cut it. As great as that is to see Kuminga be able to do that in a matchup where you want to see him be able to do that with a team that has the size of the Grizzlies, like that bodes well for Kuminga's future. But you don't want Kuminga to be your best player ever. That's a recipe to probably be taking an L. And again, no fault of his own. He's the lone bright spot, really, for me tonight, outside of the third quarter where the Warriors got to the free throw line 19 times. I mean, name somebody else who played well tonight. There really wasn't anybody who played well tonight. Moses Moody in mop-up duty played well tonight, I guess, as the Warriors end up losing this game 133-119. 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. It's John Dickinson here on Warriors Wrap-Up at 95.7 The Game. Let's go ahead and hear a couple of minutes of Steve Kerr. We'll come back. We'll get your secret sauce of the game and continue to break this one down. But we do have a couple of phone lines open if you want to join the conversation. Some text messages to get to as well. But here's a couple of minutes of Steve Kerr as he met with the media in Memphis.
Steve, you coached one possession a couple of times early in the fourth. What happened at that point that they were able to take over?
Yeah, I thought we could have done a better job early in the fourth of executing. I thought we got a little quick, took some ill-advised shots, and a couple of them led to transition threes for them. And give them credit, they made 18 threes. They shot 47% from three, and some of them were transition open ones. Some of them were contested and tough shots. So, and I give them credit for playing a great game. I thought we had our chances, but slipped away there in those first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter when, as you said, we were one possession away and we just didn't execute at that stage.
What did you just think about Jonathan Kuminga tonight and what he was able to do?
Yeah, JK was great. He played both ends, knocked down his threes, rebounded well. That was the biggest thing. That's the thing that we're looking for all the time. He had 8 rebounds tonight, 3 offensive. If he adds that to his game consistently, it'll change everything for him. And so we're going to stay on him about that. And he's a young guy, so he's learning so much every single day, and he's making strides. So, very happy with his development.
Steve, the first game here, Jaren was obviously a factor, but it seemed like in this game he was more of a factor. How much more challenging was he just kind of asserting the paint, not just with his defense, but with his offense kind of making it difficult being aggressive? Yeah, I thought Jaren played a great game tonight. I thought, he was aggressive. He was scoring in the lane, knocked down a few threes as well, but he had it going tonight for sure.
Steph kind of struggled tonight. I know it's the back end of a back-to-back and you don't want to use fatigue as an excuse, but just, I guess, what did you think of the matchup with Dylan Brooks?
I thought the schedule kind of caught up a little bit to Steph back-to-back. I think 3rd and 4 nights, a lot of travel. First game he's had since he's been back, I think, that he didn't shoot well. And, Brooks did a good job defensively. And, but all in all, it felt like Steph's legs just weren't quite there tonight. And it's going to happen. At 35, there's going to be some nights where, especially on a back-to-back with a lot of travel involved, flying cross-country, all that stuff. Sometimes it catches up to you when you're a little older, but he'll be fine.
Yeah, the interesting points there from Steve Kerr and a lot of the familiar refrain. I mean, a night like tonight is why I'm a little bit more reluctant when Steve Kerr says, hey, I'm optimistic. I'm trying to keep a positive vibe going and good things are going to still come for this team ahead if this team can kind of stick with it. And there were moments in the games tonight where you felt like that was the case. But I do think it was interesting that just that last part there about Steph and the fact that the Warriors playing the back-to-back and Steph playing through it, and the Grizzlies are a tough matchup for him, I think, especially with how physically they try and defend him and Dylan Brooks and all of that. And look, he's been able to get over on them when he's had to in the playoffs last year, and the Warriors were able to do that as a collective. But, in March, in the middle of a long trip on the second of a back-to-back where you chased last night's game and didn't get it, I can see where this can be the first night in 2 weeks where Steph doesn't have a big game. Like, really, when you talk about the older players, and we've done it a lot here the last 40 minutes, Steph's been fine. Like, all right, he'd had a bad game tonight, but he's going to probably have 8 good games out of the last 10 here, assuming he's healthy and able to play in all of them. So really the question isn't about Steph. It's more about Draymond, and it's more about Clay. Draymond, who made himself unavailable last night because he picked up that technical for throwing the ball at Russell Westbrook, and Clay, who has just been, I think, more inconsistent than people realize on the road here over the last few weeks. Like, the home games have been so stellar that I think we forget how bad some of the road games have been. And the Warriors need these guys to perform. Like, the Warriors can't just go out there and play 2 bad quarters and win the game with 8 great minutes. And Steph going off down the stretch, like, those days are over, especially against other Western Conference playoff teams on the road. And, I don't question, at least at this point, the Warriors' will to keep trying to come after it. I know we had a text on the Xfinity mobile text line. The Warriors can beat any team in the West still in a 7-game series. They've just got to dig deeper to get that 6 seed. Like, I don't question until I see otherwise the Warriors' desire to dig deeper. They just aren't good enough consistently enough. And some nights it's rebounding, and every night it's been defense. I mean, they basically give up 130 to everybody every single night on the road. But some nights Clay's good. Other nights Clay's bad. Some nights Jordan Poole's pretty good. Then other nights Jordan Poole's bad. But whatever the bad is on a given night is enough to do them in. Whereas it used to be whatever was good on a given night would be so good that it would be enough to carry him to the finish line in some games where they otherwise had played poorly. So 888-957-9570. Let's get to our secret sauce of the game, which is brought to you by Proposition Chicken. Why did the Warriors win? Why did the Warriors lose? Your secret sauce of the game for tonight here on 95.7 The Game. And it's a familiar refrain. It is the 3-point shooting for the opposition on the road, already pushing 41% for Warrior opponents when the Warriors have been on the road. And the Grizzlies ticked that up another notch, got off to the extremely hot start, 5 of 7 in the first quarter, 12 of 19 for Memphis in the first half from 3-point range, and they finish it at 18 of 38, 47.4%. you look at the Warriors on this road trip, and everybody keeps shooting the three ball against them at an extremely high level. The Warriors unable to overcome it, and they got beat tonight. It's rare they do, but tonight they did get beat at the three-point line by 15 in a game that they ultimately lost by 14, 133-119. So why did the Warriors win or lose? Tonight they lost, and it was the three-point shooting for the Grizzlies. An extension of the Warriors' bad defense. That secret sauce of the game brought to you by Proposition Chicken. Fried, flipped, fake. This chicken goes 3 ways, now available in 8 Bay Area locations, with the newest one being in Novato. 888-957-9570. From the secret sauce, we go to Duck Sauce, who's up next here on the phone lines in San Jose on Warriors Wrap-Up. What's going on, Duck Sauce?
Hey, JD, good to hear you tonight, brother. I was disappointed I missed you and Whitey this morning because I was watching March Madness. But, I just wanted to make a couple points. One, I thought the same thing that happened last game against Memphis, I thought our inability to, stay in front of Ty Jones, I really thought he set a tone in both games. Tonight he did the exact same thing he did the first game. He set a tone early. And I thought that was a big deal, not being able to stay in front of him. The other thing that really bothered me tonight, and I apologize if you might have said something about this already. I caught the show midway through, but I think it was midway through the fourth. It was subtle, but Klay just, you can see him sulking in the corner because Poole didn't get him the ball. And I know Poole can be frustrating. I get all that, but he did it like 3 times, and I love Klay Thompson with all my heart, but I'm just tired of the body language and the sulking. It's very subtle, but he just stands there for a second, kind of shakes his head instead of running back on defense. And this whole season to me, he's just coming off incredibly selfish. It's really wearing on me. And I don't know if you caught that, but it's just bothering me, man, because it's just another thing we got to deal with everything else that's going on. And that's all I really had tonight, JD. I just wanted to vent on that. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, no, Duck Sauce, I appreciate it. We actually talked about it today on Warriors This Week, how there have been really noticeable and not so noticeable moments involving Poole and all of the big three. Obviously, everybody goes to the punch back to October, and that's the one that everybody knows about. But the game at OKC where Draymond quits on the play because Jordan Poole doesn't give him the ball, and so Draymond's got one. You've got another game against Memphis earlier in the year where Steph Curry gets ejected from the game because Jordan Poole took such a bad shot that Curry was so ticked that he threw his mouthpiece, and the ref tossed him out of the game. Automatic ejection when you throw your mouthpiece. And so that's kind of one of those little eye roll moments. And Klay, I think, Duck Sauce, has had maybe more of the more subtle ones that you're talking about than Draymond. Draymond and Curry have had, I think, fewer top to bottom, but the ones they've had were more noticeable. I didn't really notice it tonight as much, but I have definitely noticed a frustration with Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole on the court, where these guys are just like, damn, like, dude, like, I can't believe you did that. That's such a bad play. We can't have this. But there is also a little bit of, something beneath the surface there where there's a resentment toward he's the guy that makes a specific mistake that sets the big three off in a different way. And so, I mean, unless they can bring other players in like Wiggins and Payton that can protect Poole and allow him to become more of a part of winning here, either down the stretch or in the playoffs, which is getting to be more and more of a long shot by the day, the Warriors' ability to do this and make this run, because every game they lose just carries this weight that it feels like they're potentially could break them at this point. But I think Poole's probably gone. I think they probably look to trade Poole. The problem is Poole didn't have as much value as he would have had if he had just been able to have a similar type year that he had a year ago. But again, I do think part of it is the fact that Poole isn't playing around as many other good defenders. That's not an excuse. Like, Poole's been lousy defensively, but it goes to roster construction and the way teams are built and all of that, to where, if Poole was out there with Gary Payton II a little more, maybe Jordan Poole's defense wouldn't look as terrible. If he was out there with Wiggins a little bit more, maybe his defense wouldn't look as terrible. Maybe if they didn't have to go to the 3-guard lineups as much because they're shorthanded in other areas of this roster, it wouldn't look as bad. Again, it's on him, but part of how you build a winning team is you have players who have specific strengths that counter other players' weaknesses, and to where those weaknesses don't kill you and the strengths can come out and help you win. And so it's not entirely nothing either. But yeah, there's been a lot. The Warriors have been on the road a bad body language team. They have, and a lot of that's been directed at Poole. And I even mentioned it when it went back to the punch, and I got a lot of heat for this, Duck Sauce, and for everybody else. You know, when Poole did, or when Draymond did what he did, as dead wrong as it was, and I've been adamant, and I don't back off of that for a second, as dead wrong as what Draymond did to Poole was, there were undertones of the fact that, like, he had it coming a little bit, and you know, the fact that he could be a frustrating player. And I remember, I go back to some of the off-season stuff where Clay himself said he liked seeing Jordan Poole get humbled because he's so arrogant. And I look, this is just me thinking out loud. I do think there's something to the fact that Jordan Poole has made a lot of money more quickly than Steph, Clay, and Draymond did. And, you know, Jordan Poole winning a title and getting his 120, 130 large, you know, with Steph Curry didn't get that kind of cash really until he didn't get a big payday until 2017-18. I mean, they had already won a title with Durant when Curry finally got paid huge cash. Draymond, you know, Poole making more on this deal than Draymond had made at any point. You know, Clay didn't get paid until, you know, in a massive way until the 2019. You know, he got his extension, which was the most he could get going back to after his first 4 years, but it really wasn't until that next one when he got hurt in 2019 where he's a guy that's, you know, upward north of $40 million a year. So I wonder if maybe there's a little bit of resentment toward, hey, dude, like, we've won 4 chips, we've earned it, and you got to play better to be on our level, and you he's the guy that makes the mistakes, and we all work with that guy, right? We all know that guy who just, when he does something wrong, because it's him and his personality type, it infuriates you exponentially more than it infuriates you if it's another guy. Like, that's just on a human level, I think, something that everybody can relate to. Even if it's a brother or a family member or somebody you love, everybody, just based on their personalities, has somebody that, oh man, that dude did that. That sets me off in a different way than if maybe it had been another player. So 888-957-9570, 888-957-9570. It's John Dickinson here for a few more minutes on Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game. Let's get to our hardest worker of the game, which is brought to you by AC Transit.
Curry with no room whatsoever, drives on Jackson, backs him out to the three-point line, crossover dribble down the lane, hook pass to Kuminga in the corner for a three that's up and good. It's a 1-point game, and Curry manufactured that whole situation right there.
Kuminga's 3 for 3 on threes already in the first quarter, Tim.
Yeah, Kuminga, a big night, and I didn't even have to coordinate that with Sterling tonight. Like, hey, usually we're like, hey, who's going to be the hardest worker? I think it should be this guy. Sterling will be like, yeah, how about this guy? Let's try and pick a good highlight from Tim and Jim. But tonight was an easy one. It's Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga really did it all, kept the Warriors in the game in the first half. Awesome game for Jonathan Kuminga. It's unfortunate that it comes in a game that does turn out to be so disappointing at the end of the night, with the Warriors losing it and not really having a chance to win it down the stretch when it was all said and done. But A++ performance tonight from Jonathan Kuminga, as he is the hardest worker of the game. 24 points, 4 of 7 from 3. He had 8 rebounds, which I think the Warriors are probably as happy about is the three-point shot. He had a block. He had a steal. He had 3 assists. Like, he was trying to play the right way. The massive dunk as well. And so Jonathan Kuminga is your hardest worker of the game. AC Transit looking for hard workers and offering a $2,000 bonus for new bus operators and journey-level mechanics to join their team. For complete details and to apply, visit actransit.org/careers. That's actransit.org/careers. Jonathan Kuminga is your hardest worker of the game. All right, let's get to Draymond Green and his post-game press conference back at FedEx Forum in Memphis. Always like hearing Draymond win or lose because he usually has something to say. So here is Draymond post-game after this one.
Open three-pointers usually comes from breakdowns at the point of attack. Then you're helping kick out threes. Well, I think a lot of their threes also come off of – wasn't so much turnovers tonight as, you get bad shots, you get bad offensive possessions, and when you get bad offensive possessions against a team like that, it's the same as a turnover, And so I think you can help yourself out some there offensively by being better offensively.
What did you kind of see with Memphis's defense in the third that kind of allowed you guys to get to the rim?
Number one, I don't think we slowed the ball down. You got some pace into the game, was able to get out in transition, beat their size down the floor. And then we attacked to get some gaps, got into the foul line, and was able to cut the lead down, but you got to keep it going.
Y'all got within one possession before the early. What changed at that point that they were able to do it?
I think we stopped making simple plays. We got back in the game just by making simple plays, and then, you don't make simple plays, make a couple mistakes, they hit a couple of threes, extend the lead, and, you've been fighting an uphill battle all night, so it's hard to continue to come back. And I think we did that 3 or 4 times. You got to get over the hump, and you do that by making simple play after simple play after simple play, and we didn't.
Down threes and attacking the rim and playing solid defense. There was at one point, I want to say it was in the third or fourth, when he kind of bobbled the ball and was able to pass it off, but you kind of pat him on the back and said, "You're fine," and just reassured him. Just what have you thought about his growth this season, and also just the mental toughness of being such a young guy in this league, and mistakes are bound to happen, but being able to stay locked in and not let that have a ripple effect?
I think his growth has been great. I think he's right where you'd hope a guy would be at this point in his career, continuing to grow and get better, understanding more, becoming more and more reliable. That's all you can ask for. As far as confidence, you just got to stay the course. Everybody make mistakes. It's kind of a carryover. He bobbled the one on the fast break. And then you come down and you bobble a couple plays later, and you're like, who cares? Playing great, Everyone bobbles the ball. And so, I think emotionally, that's always a different hurdle to get over than, necessarily play on a court. It usually takes you a little longer to grow emotionally than it does from a skill perspective. And so, you expect him to keep growing there, and I know he will, but you also can appreciate the competitiveness. A guy wanting to do everything right. That's can't knock that, but at the same time, like I told him, you can't allow it to take you off your square either.
And so it's a sideline for you and kind of say, let's go, give me everything there.
It was a continuation from the fast break that he bobbled it and he lost it. Then you come down and you bobble it again and get a bit frustrated, so just got to stay the course because everyone bobbles the ball, and we all have those plays. But at the end of the day, just got to keep on pushing, especially when you're having a game like he was having a great game.
All right, Draymond Green there. Yeah, that was one of the unfortunate moments tonight from Jonathan Kuminga. But again, that is bound to happen. Young player, not going to play well all the time or for every play. But tonight was one of Jonathan Kuminga's best games of the season. All right, final couple of minutes here, 888-957-9570. We do have a couple of calls to get to before we call it a night. So let's go to Dennis in San Francisco here quickly on Warriors wrap-up. Hey, Dennis.
You mentioned that Clay didn't play too well tonight, and he didn't play well last night either. And but Steph didn't play very well tonight. And I think there's the one thing about them getting older is that before Dylan Brooks would never be able to stay with Steph, but he did tonight. And they're on a back-to-back or whatever, and And I heard you last week, I think, not last week, the week before, said you're tired of hearing about the Warriors fans saying that when they lose that they're too small. But the problem is they are too small. And they got away with it last year, and they're not getting away with it this year. All the second chance points that they get against them, and it's unfortunate they traded that 7'1" kid, And
thanks, Dennis. Appreciate it. No, I mean, look, you're entitled to that opinion. It's also reality that James Wiseman wouldn't have played a second tonight in all likelihood because he had been deemed not good enough to play in the rotation ahead of Looney or Draymond or JaMychal Green or anybody else that the Warriors have played at that center spot. So, look, I've also said that trade has the potential to look pretty bad. Both things can be equally true. As far as Wiseman goes, like Wiseman wasn't going to help this team this season. That's a fact. The Warriors not waiting for Wiseman to become a good player in 2 years could also be something that burns him in a big time way. And again, could they have another veteran playable big to clog it up a little bit? I think that's absolutely fair criticism. Why didn't they go get a guy to play the Pachulia role? That you could just throw out there for a couple of minutes against certain teams. It's not going to be in your finishing group, but he can at least slow down the ability for a team to dominate the offensive glass. That's fair, and that's something they're going to have to look at moving forward as far as their roster composition. But for the most part, there isn't another player that they could be playing that would be preventing that because you still want Steph, Clay, Draymond out there with Wiggins. You're going to want Poole out there. Like they have enough. You want Looney out there if he's playing well. So it's not like there's this magical player that's just going to be a part of their fifth closer, in the lineup. But no, fair point to bring up, Dennis. Will in Berkeley gets the final word here tonight on Warriors Wrap Up. What's going on, Will?
Yo, I called you this morning, so I get the final.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Man, I'm telling you, I think the league has finally cracked the code. And I think the frustrating part is, yes, we don't have any confidence or any competent players assisting, Clay, Steph, and Dre. And if you notice, we haven't been losing by 70 points, 80 points. We actually been in the hundreds. So that means that the offense is doing well. But like I said this morning, I think it comes down to the fact that Mike Brown is not in the presence of, the Warriors' greatness anymore. And so the defense is lacking a lot. And so we have a lot of gaps. There's a lot of turnstile, plays going on where people just roll through the middle and just come in and just take over. And also, leaving a lot of these three-point shots open. So I think our defense is really, really hurting. I don't know who is the coordinator behind this, but they need to get it together and really, really, find a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah, thanks. Look, the Warriors do miss Mike Brown. The other flip side to that is, and I do think Mike Brown helped, obviously, the Warriors' defense with the players they had more than he's helped Sacramento. But Sacramento won again tonight, by the way. They might win 50 games. They are 11. They keep racking up wins on the road as the Warriors rack up losses on the road. They're 16 games over 500. They are 43-27, tied for second in the West with Memphis, and they have 22 road wins. The Kings have more road wins than they have home wins now. 22-13 away, 21-14 home. They won in Washington. They're just piling them up now against teams that have quit and teams whose seasons are kind of going through the dog days of March and they still want every single game. You're not going to find a bigger Mike Brown fan than JD. There's no doubt about it, and he's doing a wonderful job. And I think the Warriors do miss him, but what are you supposed to do? The guy was here for 6 years. He was waiting for an opportunity where he thought he could become a head coach with a team that he thought he could lead to do big things, and he waited for that opportunity, and he got it. To me, you can't not be just thrilled to death for Mike Brown and his ability to do what he's done. And he's been a winner as a head coach a lot more than people think. Look up Mike Brown's head coaching basketball reference. He's basically won every single year except for 2 of his coaching career. Somewhere along the line, I think there was a myth that got started that he wasn't a good head coach, which is completely false. But yeah, I think the Warriors are going to have to evaluate their coaching staff at the end of the year, and that doesn't necessarily just mean Steve Kerr, but the other guys that have different roles on this team moving forward. They also have to get some better defensive players, which I think is important as well as they head toward the end of this season, where I think they're hoping they can get Wiggins and Peyton back, but however they decide to build this team in the future. But no, good call from Will and Berkeley to close things out. All right, that'll do it. Warriors lose this one. Appreciate everybody who called and texted in here on this Saturday night as the Dubs fall to the Grizzlies, 133-119. I'm going to be back at 10 o'clock on Monday morning. One more day with Steiny in for Guru as he heads back from the South on a little family trip. So I'll be in from 10 to 2 with Steiny, as Willard and Dibbs will have Warriors Live for you before the Warriors and the Rockets. And that's another one where Alan Stiles is going to have you covered, sitting in for me on Warriors Wrap-Up. We'll see if Alan can't get a win for the Warriors on Monday. That is a huge, huge game, and one that the Warriors need here with 2 games to go on the trip and 10 games to go overall. And then I'll be back on the Warriors coverage with Warriors Wrap-Up after the game against Dallas to close out the road trip on Wednesday. Thanks to Sterling Bennett. Thanks to everybody in our San Francisco studios. Again, I'm John Dickinson. We'll talk to you Monday at 10 a.m. But keep it locked right here on your home for Warriors basketball. It's 95.7 The Game.
Wendy's 2 for $6 lets you mix and match some of our best items, like Dave Single with a 10-piece crispy nugs, medium strawberry lemonade with a spicy chicken sandwich, spicy chicken with a Dave Single with a strawberry lemonade, if you're into that. Chicken Sam, crispy nugs, strawberry lemonade, Dave's, nugs, Sam. Whew! Pick what you want at a price you want. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's 2 for $6. For a limited time, price and participation may vary at U.S. Wendy's. On the card only. Single item at regular price.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you're always looking for ways to position